Uh, Hello, everyone, and good morning, good evening, whatever you may be. Welcome to the November 15, 2022 SIG release meeting. Um, as always, super excited to see everyone. As a reminder, this is a meeting governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, and it will be recorded to the internet. So please be mindful of everything that you uh, do and say during this meeting. We have somewhat packed agenda for today, so let's kick it off with the sub-project updates. Well, if there's anybody who is new and would like to say hi, and if you want to tell us what your interest is here with SIG release and release engineering or the release team, please feel free to do so.
Hi everyone, I'm Anirudh from India. I'm doing LFX mentorship in Cluster API, GCP this summer, and I've been contributing to Cluster API and other projects for quite a long time. And yeah, I'm here to release this meeting for the first time.
Perfect. Welcome, Anita. We're happy to have you here. Anybody else who would like to say hi? All right. So if at any time you want to say hi in the next meetings, of course, you're always welcome to do so. Okay, so let's move it to the sub-project updates. Anybody would like to do an update for release engineering?
I can give it a try. So I will start with releases. Last week we had regular November patch releases. So 125, 124, 123, and 122. All those releases included fixes for two CVEs. So this is something to pay attention to and upgrade. Generally, the releases went fine. We had to delay them for 1 day than originally planned because of issues with the speed of promotion process. And I would like to give that shout out to Sasha for fixing all the stuff, because a day later we did beta 0, I think, and with all the fixes that we got merged since then, the promotion process is much faster. And like for one release, it is taking like 50 minutes for pre-submit and 30 minutes for the post-submit, which is much better than 2 hours that we had when cutting those patch releases. So definitely a great progress, and I'm very happy to see that. Besides that, we had, I think it was beta 0, if I'm not mistaken. And today we are doing RC0 for 126. So far for RC, as far as I see, mocks are done, and we will probably go to non-mocks soon. Besides that, one information is that we decided to move December patch releases for a week earlier than originally planned. And this is December 7th, because we want to make sure that we don't end up in a situation that folks are on vacations and holidays, that we don't have anyone to like cut releases or publish them at RPMs. So we are going to do it on the safer side and do it 1 week earlier than originally planned. Also, when it comes to that, we are still discussing if we want to do one more 122 release, and it will be only for the registry change that we had planned before. This is something that we are still waiting on the feedback. There is a PR open to update the calendar with it. I can eventually link to it later, but if you have any feedback to provide regarding that, it will be welcome. And let me see what else have. We had some issue with tests and test grid, but I think most of them were resolved before and while we cutting release. Maybe there is something that is going on master informing, but I think I would leave that to release team to give a better update than I could do. And I could also say for OBS, there is no major updates for now because I have been busy with releases and stuff like that. So I hope to pick up on that this and next week. And I guess that will be it. I don't think I forgot anything too important, but please let me know if I did.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would just only like to add that Sasha fixing the time with the promoter unlocks a ton of things for other people. So we can we have that fixed as our previous priority. So we can now continue working on some of the other efforts that we were doing to the release process, and also on the side of SIG Infra, it will allow them to, continue the shedding of the load to some of the other cloud providers that they're doing. So again, thank you, Sasha. It was a really great thing to do. And also the other one is there is Carlos has in flight a PR to sign the artifacts. It's pretty far ahead by now, so I expect he's not here, I think, but to give us an update. But that should be landing soon. I'm not sure if we still have to talk, depending on where it lands, on when it lands. We still have to think when we will first run that. But it's a great thing to see. Okay, so any questions for Marco or release engineering?
I would like to add 2 more things.
Okay.
So it's just too hard to keep up with everything, but there are 2 proposed changes a little bit to, let's call it, release process. Jeremy sent an email to Kubernetes dev that we are planning to stop doing RC0 for official releases. So this is something that, if you can, please take a look and provide the feedback on that. And also, I drafted an announcement that we stop publishing those Kubernetes source code artifact on GitHub releases page. So those are 2 changes that are coming up that will be nice to get some feedback. And if that's okay, that we can proceed with those changes.
Okay, yeah, if we have some time, we can maybe talk a little bit more about that last one to gather everybody's ideas.
So for the first one, I would suggest, I noticed that things look to be going well based on Sasha's test PR, but I would maybe strongly suggest holding those changes until the next batch of patch releases. Just like, let's get out of the year clean before enacting that, because I think the changes that we've made to the release process relating to versioning in the past, and this was pre-Krell, but I think also the straw that broke Anaga's back, so to speak, in deciding that we should. Weird things happened with versioning. It was related to an upgrade of Bash in our images for release engineering because of the way that Bash 5 handled associative arrays, and that wrecked the release process for multiple weeks. Not saying that that will happen again, but given that we've pulled these releases up for the sake of making sure that people can have off hours during holiday time, I would suggest not doing anything to the release process that does need to be done until we hit next year.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. So I would really like to understand deeper why the RC is cut right after the release tag, but yeah, I also feel that we need to gather more opinions on why they're there, and if it's just safe to remove them.
It's so in the past it was done to essentially, and to Ben's points and Jordan's points on the emails, in the past it was done to essentially say that the content in the release branch moving forward is content for the next version. That was pretty much it. What I would say is if we are concerned about the time it takes to do releases, that we still do the tags and not ship binaries for it, not ship artifacts for it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, or at least not promoting the images.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we don't promote the images, we'll run into a failure on the verifications. But we can say that we just don't want to do any artifacts for them. Well, if the tag is sufficient, I think that's fine. But changing the expectation to the new content being within the old release version, I think is incorrect. So we should discuss that some more. Two, I think prior to sending notes, we should do some more discussion within SIG release before sending that to KDev. Because I'm not sure if we're going to see more questions or friction before we've had a chance to discuss. Do we have a discussion GitHub discussion thing open for it, perhaps?
I don't think there is. But...
Only the mailing list, but we can open a discussion item for that. I can do that right now.
Okay, great.
Cool. So any other questions about that subject or any other in release engineering? Okay. All right, so let's move to the release team update.
I can give an update. So as Mark already mentioned, we have quite, I think, 3 or 4 failings or mass informing. I synced with the CI Signal team earlier today, so they are on it. I think besides the one, it's clear what the root source of the problem is. One is currently they are investigating the responsible SIG, but I will keep a closer eye on the CI Signal reporting. But I think for RC0 is the light green, so that's good. Today we also have in the SIG testing meeting a short presentation or like a short I don't know summary about CI Signal, about test grid, how to observe flakes and everything. So we observed that in the past it was a little bit challenging to basically transport the knowledge from one team to the next one. So for CI Signal, we probably need to improve further the onboarding. We already have a couple of recordings and a long handbook and everything, but it looks like there's still some work needed to better transport the knowledge to the shadows and so on. So the recording of the SIG testing meeting today will also be then part of the onboarding for new CI Signal folks, or this is like one of the options to look at. Then code freeze is done. We approved 8 exception requests. 6 made it also in time. 2 got postponed to the next release. We created a new project board to view basically the status during last week. And one of the exception requests was a little bit more challenging, I would say, or a little bit more discussions have been held around the exception requests. I linked it below in the retro item. So there was one exception request, a very large PR or a cap with associated very large PRs got postponed again, and this happened now for a couple of cycles. And Tim and some others were quite unhappy about the fact that this happened now again, and perhaps there's like the chance to better incorporate large PRs. So this is the new item which I added to the retro, which could lead to maybe some small adjustments in the release process. So Tim, for example, had the idea that maybe there's a new deadline for large PRs or large caps. So there's basically, we just stretch out the review timeline. So the reviewers of the PRs and the SIG leads and everything, they are not required to review everything inside of like a very short time of period. Maybe we can stretch out the period somehow and then improve the overall like flow of getting also large PRs in the release. But yeah,
So
would be interesting to hear your. Yep.
Yeah. So here's a question: what stops people from reviewing PRs outside of the release cycle?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can answer this
Yeah.
very good.
No,
because,
yeah, it's not a question for it's a question for the class, as it were. There's nothing that stops people from reviewing KEPs ahead of time, out of band,
Yeah.
not inside of the release cycle. If we, I feel like every time we do a retro, if we, I mentioned something along the lines, if we push the deadlines, like the deadlines are already not respected in many ways. If we
Mhm.
push the deadlines and we change deadlines where it's a soft deadline, it's a freeze, it's an almost freeze, we're going to continue to run into these issues. My understanding of the what got kicked was that it has been kicked for multiple cycles,
Yeah.
like and not just like 2 or 3, but more than that.
Yeah.
So that is, I'm not sure that is our problem to take on. I think that's a question that needs to be asked to the SIG of why is review not happening ahead of time if we know that this is an issue.
Yeah. So for this particular case, there was a couple of reasons why we also shortened the approval time. We had to move it up again, but there were reviews missing from SIG node, and the author of the pull request basically commented it was a great exercise of rebasing. So maybe this was one of the challenges, that this the code where he made some adjustments was kind of heavily being worked on also on other KEPs, and this kind of messed up the reviews again and so on. But Tim also mentioned that this is likely or maybe not a problem of the release process, so not on our side, maybe a problem on the side of the reviewers, so that they have to maybe, I don't know, define different schedules or something else. So maybe it's not the release team that needs to take like the big action here.
So I think it is worthwhile, for the sake of our retro, to determine that, at least using this as a test case, to say like this is truly not part of our process, and use that as an escalation point. So let's make sure that we are capturing. I'm sure it's already captured, but let's make sure we are capturing it for the retro.
It's on the retro. Yeah.
Right. Any other questions for Leo or the release team? Okay. So let's move on to the open discussion. The first one is from Mohammed about notarizing the macOS binaries.
He
left a
comments.
comment
Oh,
that
yeah,
he's not here this week, so it's better to defer it.
Okay, yeah, I can give a brief context on that. He's been doing the notarizing to sign the Mac binaries on Knative, so he wants to do the same for our binaries here. But yeah, let's defer that to when he is here. Okay, the next one is from me. And it's around coordinating the announcement of the backport of the new registry domain name into KK. So for those, let me give you a little bit of context about that. So we have been working for the past couple of months or maybe more to try to find a way to shed the serving load from the community infra in Google Cloud to modify how we are serving artifacts to make sure that we can leverage other infrastructure donated by some other cloud providers. And this has been work that has been ongoing for, I mean, the KEP itself, I think it's been open for maybe 2 years, I think. Well, maybe not that, but for a long time. But now things have become a little bit more pressing, and we want to ensure. So if you maybe miss the announcements, that have been flying around in Slack and also by commenting by some people on Twitter. I mean, this announcement have been happening in SIG Infra Slack, not in SIG release. So we were short in the budget to serve the artifacts, that is the container images that people pull to spin up their clusters. We were short in the budget to serve that this year by several $100,000. The situation for this year is now resolved by another donation of money to pay for the remaining of the bill. But now we need to think about next year. And so what we have been working on together with SIG Infra is how to shift the load of the images we release so that they can be served by other cloud providers. And the first one is already taking some load, but we need to accelerate that serving process because we need to ensure that next year, at least, I think it's at least half of the image servings are coming from there. For more details on the actual numbers, I would refer that to the SIG Infra meeting. But one thing we need to do is we need to backport. So the registry name from where we serve the images is changing from the former gates.gcr.io to registry.gates.io. But that subtle change has some breaking implications for people running under certain circumstances, namely people who are running in networks that have high security via firewall connections to the outside or maybe air-gapped environments. So we need to, and plus a few others, which we need to warn people about. So the idea is we want to backport those changes to the branches who are still under maintenance and in maintenance mode. So under support and maintenance mode. So folks in SIG-Node and the KubeADM people have been working on the backports to change the registry name in the older branches, but it falls under our responsibility to ensure that we are communicating that because we are the ones allowing the backports to go into the branches. So there was a first attempt of a blog post that went down during KubeCon, and I think it ended up in too much discussion. So I will attempt to do a second one and maybe opening up for review of more focused stakeholders instead of just a free-for-all, so that we can discuss it in a more controlled manner. Not controlled in the sense that it's not open, but in the sense that, well, basically not opening editing for everybody because it went down into chaos. So I will share it soon, as soon as we can. I mean, we have the older blog post. I can share it if someone is interested or didn't get it in the first try. But I think we need to do another capturing everything that everybody commented because it's, I think, hundreds of comments on the original post. So basically the idea is, at least from my point of view, we need to tell the community what the changes are, what they can expect, when they can expect to break if they're running on certain environments, and some technical information on how to roll back to the older domain name, and also finally maybe just letting people know why this is happening. Beyond the blog post, I think if anybody has more ideas, always welcome, and we can certainly relate them to SIG Contribex comms. So I don't know if anybody has any comments, suggestions about this.
Sorry, go for it.
It's very sorry, Stephen. Very quickly from Contravex comms. So this was a topic that we've discussed, not only with Adolfo but in general. And just to say that, as always, we're here to help. Whenever there's an article that gathers the necessary consensus in the initial form, I've been recently appointed as blog lead for the Contravex comms team, so I will look at it immediately and make sure that the necessary editing and more processual nature of the thing that needs to be done flow naturally.
Yeah, thanks, Rigo, and also thank you for your help during this past days.
Yeah, ditto to that. I think, in this communication, if we did not do it the first time around, I think it's worthwhile mentioning that we are a community project, and and I think there's always a hope that folks who are consuming will also contribute in some way, shape, or form, and that the alternatives we're doing this because I think it's I think irrespective of choices that you make, that people want to bring a counter argument to why something should not be done. So I think talking through some of the alternatives, which include no longer publishing artifacts for previous releases because of the costs associated, is a worthwhile thing to do. Just for the sake of clarity, we are doing this as a service for previous releases. We could just as easily not do it.
Okay, that's great feedback. Yeah, thank you. The original one didn't mention that at all. Okay, so any other ideas, feedback around the communication?
I had a chance to look at the original post. I would just say that I think it is well done, but I would like that we somehow better emphasize on urgency of this, and maybe what's going to happen if forks don't migrate. And also, what is one very important thing that I think that was not highlighted enough, that we really need some call for action or something like that for folks maintaining things like charts, other projects, I don't know, stuff that is using KTS, GCR, IO, that they need to migrate as soon as possible. This, for example, includes stuff, I don't know, like CCMs, CSI drivers, I don't know, many of the help charts that users deploy. And I think this is something that is also important to cover. Like, we really need to tell to folks making such components, to downstream consumers like big vendors and so on, like, you really have to switch as soon as possible, even if it is not really nice experience, but this is something that's going to help project a lot. Or otherwise, yeah, we don't know how is this going to turn around.
Yeah, great point. I mean, to Arno's credit, he did like a sweep in GitHub trying to find the old registry name everywhere he could. But I mean, we cannot over communicate enough, so I'll make sure that it makes it in there.
Yeah, I think the big thing you'll find is that the references on our part are easy, quote unquote, to find. The harder ones are all the downstream implications that we won't be able to fully aggregate. And another alternative for folks who that will be difficult to do is to stay on an older release, stay on an older patch of an older release. That you can choose when you want to upgrade. I mean, for sure, for things in maintenance, you're kind of you should be considering moving to the next release, the next minor release. For things for things that are still within the patch support cycle, you do have some time to stay on a previous patch if that is going to be a disruptive change for you.
Okay, yeah, there's a question from Angelos in the chat regarding if registry.k.io is as stable as the older one, and yes, it is. So the only difference between the two is that when you are hitting the so one domain is part of a Google service, and then one is the community domain. But I mean, technically they work differently, but it's been under testing for a while now, and I think all glitches have been factored out.
Great idea, thank you.
Right. Okay, so any other questions, thoughts about that? All right. So as the communications effort moves along, I'll try to share more in our channel. The other one, I couldn't communicate as much because I was traveling while doing this, but in the next one, I promise to be more communicative about it. All right. The next one is from Leo. We still have time yet. Tracking image updates.
Yes, so this was brought up by Dims in a thread, and I think it's worth bringing this to this meeting. So if we have like new container images, new images in general, this is usually done in 2 steps, 2 PRs, and it happened yesterday that yesterday we noticed that the PR to update the reference to the new image was forgotten, and perhaps there's like a good idea to log this or to improve that so we don't forget to update the references. Yeah, I'm not too much into detail, so yeah, maybe you have some ideas.
I saw the comments fly by, and I had a discussion with Carlos about 1 month ago that we were seeing sometimes folks do that, like updating, bumping images, but not completing the process of actually rolling them out. So maybe we should like write down on our, I don't know if there's how the documentation on image bumps, what it looks like, or there's the issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, like it's here and there. I think the documentation for like Golang images is pretty much ensconced in the issue template for Golang image updates. The issue template also does note that the issue should be filled out and completed by a release manager. And part of the reason for that is because of this, because that last mile of the update gets dropped if it is not handled by someone with a context. So I would say one of the things that we should try to ensure is that if someone outside of the release manager's team is handling an update, that whoever is actually approving the updates is taking a note at least to say, let's make sure that we're checking in on whether or not this actually got bumped. Because for most, many, maybe all of these updates, they are all ultimately our responsibility. The second component of this is for Zeitgeist. It has been a while since I've touched the code, but Zeitgeist should or does have the capability to essentially look ahead in terms of updates and check if something should be updated. What we could do is add update the parameters of the existing pre-submits for Zeitgeist to block if there is an image update for certain registries. But we'd have to dig into how we're using it today in Kubernetes.
Okay, I'm taking notes. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, because if you, if someone opens the issue, so if I open an issue and I am not a release manager, can I still update the GitHub issue as I go along? I think I can.
If you're the issue creator, you can. And otherwise, you need elevated privileges on the repo to modify the issue description.
Okay. So, yeah. So maybe we should when someone not from the release management team starts doing that, maybe assigning a release manager should be always the case, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, and so that gives us a nice AI. All right, any other questions about this subject? We have time maybe for one or two more. Okay, next one's from Jeremy. Use browse will prove cherry picks.
Yeah, I have a couple of really quick ones. So Marco and I were discussing release manager associates reviewing cherry pick PRs. And right now, to apply the label, you have to be in the release manager's group to do it manually. So we discussed that maybe it would be cool if there was a Prow plugin that could better look at the release managers and the release manager associates list and then do some validation. So I opened an issue to track that, and I started working on a PR yesterday to start implementing a new plugin. It'll be called Cherry Pick Approved to go alongside of our Cherry Pick Unapproved plugin. If you have any suggestions on how that might look, feel free to drop them into the issue. Sasha dropped some comments in there about things we might want to do later on too. So feel free to take a look at that one if you have any feedback or comments. I think it'll be cool once we have this. And then the other one, I just wanted to mention a couple of changes that I did to K-release that just got merged. One, I modified the Docker file and the make file for building Go Runner. So now you can override the distro image and point it to another registry if you want to. So it's not hard coded to GCR. And then I also allowed you to override the builder image. So if you want to provide your own there, we're going to use that internally. So that's why I get that. And then in the kubecross image, I noticed there was a Darwin 386 target architecture, which was removed in Go 115. And since we're not supporting Go 115 anymore, remove that just to clean things up a little bit. And then as I was looking at that, we had a discussion in SIG release or in release management. I'll go back and find the thread and link it here. But there was a question whether we need to do a step in the build for kubecross at all, or if it needs to change. Right now, if the target architecture for the kubecross that's being built is AMD 64, it tries to precompile the standard library for everything that we're going to build, and that's like the S390X and the Windows 386 and everything, and it only does that for AMD 64. So like if you're building it and you're going to run it on like a new MacBook or something that's ARM 64 and you're targeting ARM 64, it's not going to do that. So is it worthwhile doing that? Ben Elder thinks that it's probably not worth doing it at all because there's so many random flags that are used that we're probably recompiling the standard library anyway when we're building stuff. So I'm doing some analysis right now to see if we want to continue doing that inside of the kubecross image. If we get rid of it, it'll shrink the image down a little bit and just make it a little bit easier to maintain going forward. So I don't know if I opened an issue for that or not. I think I did. I'll link it here too. If I didn't, I'll open one to track it. But we're looking at building some things like Microsoft builds Kubernetes using all of the release engineering tools and all of these things. But we're trying to do some things that I ran into some issues which have prompted me to do some of these changes. So these are just kind of heads up.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, these are pretty awesome. For the suggestion on the cherry pick approvals, I would say that hopefully we're using something like the milestone or something as a milestone plugin as a template.
Yeah. It's similar, right? Like it's checking
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mentioned milestone specifically because milestone also includes that ability to restrict based on GitHub teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can do it for the release managers team. I think I am overdue to get back to the discussion around onboarding for release manager associates and kind of moving through that ladder overall. One of the things that we want release manager associates to be able to do is do that cherry pick review. I think the question that will always come up is kind of like, is this ready for approval? And is a release manager associate necessarily the right person to determine that? So I think I think that at least in the interim, we should see hopefully see an uptick in release manager associates doing review, even if it's for the sake of having a pre-review for release managers to eventually approve before being able to kind of grant this wholesale.
Yeah, we can expand it out. I think it'll just make it easier for release managers too to just type and not have to click.
Yeah. Now I know it looks like we hit the end of the agenda. So I have a topic that I did not put on the agenda, but if I will only raise it if someone else does not have a topic.
Go for it, I think.
All right, cool. So I think definitely over the last few cycles, we can never have enough leadership in the team. And in discussions and kind of conversations between the release chairs and TLs, we would like to propose some changes to the roster. The first would be to and I can write up an issue, send a note, all those good things. But the first would be to propose Jeremy to move from technical lead to a SIG release chair. I think Jeremy has been doing a phenomenal job kind of on the release team sub project, but really kind of looking across the SIG, handling some of the fun politics that we have to deal with on occasion across all SIGs, and really just doing a phenomenal job overall. I think that the opportunity is there if he is interested in it, and I heard that he is. So that is the first change that we'll be proposing. The second is again one of our fellow teammates that kind of goes above and beyond on the technical side, both in kind of encouraging new contributors within the SIG, as well as making sure that the wheels don't kind of fall off of the race car or the rocket ship or whatever metaphor that we want to use. So we'd like to propose that Veronica join us as a SIG release technical lead. Yep.
Too bad she's not here today.
I did talk to her prior to this, and she is interested. So.
That's super happy to hear all of that. I mean, I wish the video could capture all of the congratulations messages on the chat.
So again, thank you to both Jeremy and Veronica for your hard work, really across years. I think working in SIG release, the time starts to lead together, but we've been kind of working on it for a while, and seriously, the folks that come and stay and provide that kind of connective tissue for people who are people and processes kind of that we depend on. Like, thank you, seriously.
All right, nice to end up with some really good message. All right, unless Jeremy wants to say something before we go, we're at time. All right.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah, thank you everybody for showing up, and let's keep the discussion and conversation in the Slack channels. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you.